you please explain to our audience what Launchbox is?
Well, if you're selected to be on the program, you get €10,000 for your startup, no strings attached. They get a lot of media attention as well.
What are the best ways for a startup to fundraise?
If you're looking for money, ask for advice. If you're looking for advice, ask for money.
What are the biggest developments in the field of AI?
The biggest changes or the biggest opportunity for artificial intelligence is in around creating efficiencies in really boring jobs.
Welcome. My name is Daniel Groulet, and I'm the president of the Global Young Entrepreneur Society. The Global Young Entrepreneur Society is an international organization that supports exceptional young people in achieving entrepreneurial growth. My guest today is Ken Finnegan, Chief Executive Officer of Tangent, Trinity's Ideas Workspace. Located at Trinity Business School, Tangent has a wide variety of programs meant to foster entrepreneurship and impressive startup accelerators. Largely thanks to Tangent, Trinity College Dublin has been rated the #1 university in Europe for producing entrepreneurs for 6 consecutive years. Startups that took part in Tangent's Launchbox program have raised over €72 million in funding and have created over 300 jobs since 2013. Some of these success stories include Artomatics, which was sold for €60 million in 2019, and TouchTech Payments, which was acquired by Stripe. I'm pleased to welcome the CEO of Tangent, Ken Finnegan.
Hey Daniel, thanks for having me, and great research. You've done your homework on Tangent and Trinity, so it's always really nice to hear kind of like the success has been repeated back to me, because normally I'm telling everybody about our successes. So thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. As the CEO of Tangent, could you please explain to our audience what Launchbox is?
Yeah, maybe I'm going to step one step back before I just explain Launchbox. I'll introduce Tangent. So Tangent is Trinity's Ideas Workspace. We're very young ourselves. We're nearly like a startup. We're about 3 years old ourselves, and it's a consolidation from of all the innovation and entrepreneurial activities from around Trinity from over the years, right? So there was kind of like different programs here, and Launchbox was over here, and there was the Innovation Academy here. So the leadership of Trinity before my day decided, let's bring it all together and create Tangent. And in Tangent, essentially, there's kind of like, I guess we talk about the journey of an idea, right? But how we've structured that as an organization. We have an engagement area, and engagement is all about inspiring students to be an entrepreneur, to want to change the world. So we bring in speakers and we bring students together, etc. We have education. So it's like, once I've been inspired, I want to upskill myself to have the skills to be an entrepreneur. Those are hard and soft skills. So I learned kind of like hard skills around business planning and storytelling, etc. But also the soft skills around creative collaboration and teamwork, etc. So I've been inspired, now I've been educated. We provide incubation and acceleration programs for startups. So Launchbox would fit into the acceleration side of things, well, the incubation and acceleration side of things, because we provide a home for the startups. And then Launchbox it's a student accelerator. It's run in the summertime. Every summer, we've been going for 8 years now. There's about 83 startups that have gone through the program, averaging about 10 every year. It's a competitive competition or competitive program. So every year, startups compete to be in the program. And it's a very, very popular program, let's say. So we have about maybe 100 startups that compete every year to be on the program. We only accept 10. But if you get accepted to the program, yes, it's got great kind of like recognition globally in terms of being one of the best student accelerators in the world. If you're selected to be on the program, you get €10,000 for your startup, a non-equity investment from Tangent, from Trinity for your startup. So there's no strings attached. It's for the startup to spend how they wish. They can spend it on equipment, they can spend it on staff, they can spend it on whatever they choose to build their company. The program usually runs between June to September, June to August. It's a summer program, and the students are put through kind of like it's not a kind of like a light touch program. In normal times, when we're not in lockdown or we don't have COVID, the students will be in here, and they'll be in here from 9 o'clock on a Monday morning till 5:30 on Friday evening. They will be exposed and they will meet the best entrepreneurs, not just from Ireland, but internationally as well, including Stanford University here in Dublin as well. And then a lot of our alumni actually come back and speak as well to mentor and guide the students on their startups. So they get a lot of activities in terms of, from a network perspective, to meet previous and successful entrepreneurs, as well as then we provide training for them, lots of programmatic activity, all the while to kind of like with the aim of demo day. So, any accelerator works towards their demo day. So demo day is a big deal. At the end of the program, each team has to get up and they pitch their idea in 5 minutes. They just have 5 minutes. And if they win, they get an extra €3,000, but they get the accolade of having been the winners of Launchbox. They get a lot of media attention as well, especially in the Irish media. Last year, for example, 3 of the Forbes 30 under 30, so 10% in Ireland, were alumni from that program. They get a lot of, as I said, press, just general write-ups. So it's a really good place for students to get exposure for their companies and build up the skills.
In the past 3 years of leading Tangent, you have seen many Trinity student entrepreneurs fail and succeed. What makes an entrepreneur successful?
A good question. So I mentor each student group every summer, and I'll always begin talking about the values that I believe in. So agility, have the ability to kind of like be agile. It's like look at your surroundings, understand what your customer needs, understand what resources are available, understand kind of like all the different variables if you want. So to be agile is one thing. Adaptable, kind of like related to agile. Agile is speed, but adaptable is also kind of like, I've been very much involved in the world of artificial intelligence, for example, in Ireland. So it's like, what are the disruptive technologies that are influencing business? What are the macro and microeconomic trends? Like, how do we adapt our business and pivot our business to be more essentially adaptable to those types of things? And then resilience. Everything doesn't work out all the time. Actually, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to be able to look at failure as not failure, if you want, to be able to kind of like fall down or be rejected, and kind of like, it's okay. I always tell everybody, feel bad about it, but create kind of like, I'm just going to feel miserable for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, I'm going to brush myself down and that's fine. It's over. So resilience is really important. And to be able to have a kind of like a positive view on when things don't work out the way you want them, but to be able to learn from that experience. Yeah.
Many Launchbox alumni startups have gone on to raise significant amounts of capital. In your experience, what are the best ways for a startup to fundraise?
Okay, so we deal with very, very early stage startups, from ideation to kind of like what we like to see from our startups when they're finishing up in Tangent is that they have some type of MVP, a minimal viable product, or they at least have they have their pitch together. They've done a lot of work in terms of customer identification, et cetera, market identification. But the one piece of advice that actually it's from Brian Field, who's a successful VC here in Ireland, and he's a successful businessman himself. He always would say, if you're looking for advice, if you're looking for money, ask for advice. If you're looking for advice, ask for money. If you are starting to look for funding, it's like, before you look for funding, get out there and speak to the entire community, get known, become known for not looking for money, for looking for advice. There's nothing as flattering as people who are successful in the business. If I'm a startup and I come to you and I'm going like, look, Brian or John or whatever, you've done an amazing job and you're now a VC. It's like, I have this problem and I think you might be able to help me with it. Would you mind meeting for a coffee? And for them to build up a kind of like a relationship and an understanding of you as an individual, it's like, yes, it's important to invest in a company, but people look at people, and my experience, I guess, has shown me that we invest in people. The company is like, can have a great idea and it can be a great product and it needs to be able to excite, but also I need to trust that person. Yeah.
Tangent supports startups, but it does not ask for equity in exchange for any of its services like for-profit startup incubators do. What are the similarities and differences between Tangent and most startup incubators? And do you think they make the process of starting a successful business easier?
I'm a big believer. My brother has won awards for entrepreneurship over the years, right? But he's done it the hard way. He's kind of like, he's tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. And I really respect that. But I think like incubators and accelerators are actually, when people have tried and failed, it's like they're the people that should be mentoring on incubators and accelerators. You want to learn from the people that have have failed. And I don't like using the word failed very often because I don't believe in the word failure. I think it's failure is kind of like if you dwell on something that didn't go right, and if you kind of like don't do anything again, that is failure. But actually, I think incubators and accelerators, we should celebrate and look at perceived failure as kind of like a learning opportunity. It's like, okay, I've done it this way, it didn't work out, and the reason it didn't work out is X, Y, and Z. So I think incubators and accelerators, in my mind, you see a lot of them. Even in the past 4 or 5 years, you see a lot more of them. And I think they're really good environments for startups and early stage organizations to participate in. The one thing that I always will warn everybody, startups, we don't take equity in any of our companies. Just be careful of how much you give away, especially at a very early stage.
You have considerable expertise in the field of AI, and you developed a national proposition in AI for Ireland. What are the biggest developments in the field of AI, and what are their implications?
We do run an accelerator in Tangent for early stage startups in artificial intelligence. My previous life, I used to work attracting foreign direct investment into Ireland. So I worked with the biggest companies. Now I work with the smallest of companies, but I've worked in technology. So it's like bridging, it's understanding what we as a country and as a nation, I worked from a national perspective, can offer, right? So I'll speak to it from an Irish perspective at the moment, I guess, because Ireland has a rich pedigree, if you want, in attracting tech companies. In 1966, IBM moved here as one of the first tech companies to move into Ireland. So they've been here 60 plus years, it's about 65 years. But when they moved over to Ireland, it was manufacturing and it was low skilled jobs. Today, it has the only research center for technology outside of America here in Ireland. It also employs 3,000 software engineers. That was 1966. Subsequent to this, we have so many tech companies based in Ireland at the moment. There's like this Silicon Republic or Silicon Isle. So we have a wonderful capability in technology that's been built up over the years. So from an artificial intelligence perspective, there's a minor jump from our national capability into AI, right? Now, I don't want to underestimate that jump, but our education system is flexible enough to adapt. Adaptability, agility, here's my values again. Where I see the biggest opportunity, to be honest with you, it's like there's cool, sexy projects and services everywhere. On our AI accelerator, there was some really cool startups. The guys that won, it was all around artificial intelligence and wellness and health. It was a company called MPL, and they're going from strength to strength at the moment. And it was kind of like a bespoke health program on your mobile and help keep you motivated on your nutrition, kind of like a bespoke program that was helped develop by AI. The second, the guys that came runners up, a really, really interesting organization, a really interesting startup. Two of them are in Trinity at the moment, actually. And they won our student accelerator. But they have a device that if you're watching a football match or if you're blind or visually impaired and you're at a football match, traditionally what happens is somebody will sit beside you and explain what's happening. So you get the atmosphere, but you have to listen to kind of like the somebody telling you where the ball is, etc. Or they'll map where the ball is out on your hands. So that's a kind of like a very famous video. So the guys have taken visual technology and they've used it to create a haptic device that vibrates to locate the football wherever it is in the football pitch in real time. So really, really interesting things there. But honestly, I think the biggest changes or the biggest opportunity for artificial intelligence is in around creating efficiencies in really boring jobs. Any job that we don't like doing. I spend a lot of time in front of Excel. I cannot wait till a robot comes and takes Excel out of my hands and the artificial intelligence can work on crunching numbers for me. Yeah.
Would you recommend young entrepreneurs to move to Ireland to build their businesses?
Absolutely. There's a wonderful energy in Ireland. I can see Twitter from my window. Twitter European headquarters, Google European headquarters are up the street as well. LinkedIn are not too far. There's a lot of really clever people that have grown up through the ranks of these companies and now they want to do their own things.
If you could give one piece of advice for young entrepreneurs, what would it be?
The first time it goes wrong, don't give up. because it's going to go wrong lots and lots and lots of times, because resilience, I think, is the most important characteristic of an entrepreneur.
Do you have any suggestions for young entrepreneurs on how to make AI a part of their businesses?
Really, really interesting question, because the easy answer I'd say is like, look, if there's a disruptive technology out there, the future is always the next steps. You know what I mean? Anyways, AI is going to be ubiquitous. And what I mean by that is, like, right now I'm sitting in a room and there's artificial lighting above me. And I don't even think about how it gets there or what powers how electricity is created or the technology that goes into the bulbs or any of that kind of stuff, but it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere and we use it every day. I do believe that AI will be built into everything as well in the future. I do think you need to consider how artificial intelligence can be used from a product, service, or an efficiency that you're working on, that your startup might be working on. Be careful not to get into the technology. Try and find a way. Well, unless you're a tech company, but if you're kind of like, if you're not a tech company with AI capability, try and find a service that you can leverage. You know what I mean? It's in its infancy at the moment. It's as I said, an emerging technology. And you can see some of the large tech organizations positioning themselves to be the service provider, if you want, or be the technical provider for artificial intelligence. So definitely consider it and understand how it can be integrated into your organization, and if it can be, and if it makes sense, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Many companies from around the world have moved their offices to Ireland. Would you recommend young entrepreneurs to move to Ireland to build their businesses?
Absolutely. Look, there's a wonderful energy in Ireland. I can imagine when Silicon Valley was being established and that type of energy and atmosphere. Dublin is definitely, like, I'm sitting in a brand new building, by the way, like Trinity Business School building we were only in here 9 months before lockdown happened. But if I look outside my window, there's construction happening. I can see Twitter from my window. Twitter European headquarters, Google European headquarters are up the street as well. And LinkedIn are not too far away. So you have kind of like all these massive organizations. But what we're seeing at the moment is these organizations, these large corporates have bedded themselves in, and the entrepreneurs within those organizations. There's a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's great, because you need to have that kind of like that energy and the innovative mindsets within these organizations. But some of them want their own thing. So what you're seeing is a lot of really clever people that have grown up through the ranks of these companies. They want their own thing. So there's really, really incredible startup companies here. There's really incredible innovation hubs, and Dogpatch Labs, for example, is an innovation hub 2 minutes down the road from us, and you'll see really cool companies based in there. And when these things start to come together, when you have interesting large companies, when you've got innovation hubs like Tangent, and you've got non-university based innovation hubs, all of a sudden you've got a community, you've got an ecosystem happening. And in Dublin, and not just Dublin, but all around Ireland, and a lot of the cities and towns around Ireland, there's an energy around this ecosystem, and especially in the past year and a half, I guess, COVID has shown us that we don't need to be based in the city centre, but there's still that energy in the city centre, so people are still drawn to it, but they can still live down the country, or they can be. I don't say anywhere in the world. You want to be close to a lot of the activity. So having a lot of those companies here, they've been here long enough, they've matured. Loads of really skilled technical people and talented people have grown up in those companies, and now they want to do their own thing. So they're established their own startups, and there is supports here for them. Supports could be better for startups, like in any country, but there's as I said, if you're looking for good energy, talented people, all that kind of stuff, it's a great place to come to.
Would you say Dublin is becoming Europe's Silicon Valley?
I'd be biased, and I'd say, of course, yeah. Like, there's lots of terms here. We've got Silicon Docks, half a kilometre from us. A lot of the tech companies are based down there. It's shiny, it's new, lots of really cool buildings, lots of really cool companies. So yeah, there is definitely a sense of Silicon Island, Silicon Republic, if you want. Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice for young entrepreneurs in the process of starting or building their businesses, what would it be? The
first time it goes wrong, don't give up. because it's going to go wrong lots and lots and lots of times. This is the point that I was making earlier on, the value of resilience. Kind of like it's okay to cry, and to suffer when something goes wrong, but give yourself a kind of like a day or half a day. I'm old enough, I won't mention my age, but it's like things still go wrong for me on a daily basis, and things still annoy me, and sometimes I feel like giving up. But don't give up. Shed those few tears, or do whatever. You go for a walk, but give yourself a kind of like, it's like, okay, at 5 o'clock this evening, I'm not going to feel bad anymore, and I'm going to just keep on going at it, because resilience, I think, is the most important characteristic of an entrepreneur. To be honest with you, it's like having to get up and go, to keep on going. I'll just give you one little short anecdote, a little example of this. So the very first winner of Launchbox years ago, back in 2013, was a company called Food Cloud. It was founded by Iseult Ward. Iseult actually sits on the board of Tangent, but Iseult tells this amazing story of, she was on the accelerator, and her concept was to take unused food from supermarkets and redistribute it to people in need, right? So when food is going to be thrown in the bin or thrown away, get it just before it goes out of date and redistribute it soon enough so that people can use it. In her analysis and customer journey, if you want, customer discovery, should I say, she spoke to a few managers in supermarkets. And one of the guys, one Friday, she tells this great story. One Friday she went, it was a Friday afternoon, and this guy said, it's a stupid idea. It's never going to work. Just there's no point in you even pursuing this. You'll never get anywhere with it. So she talks about coming back into Trinity and sitting in Front Square on Friday evening and feeling so dejected, demoralized, depressed, everything. And she just wanted to give up there and then. But on the Monday morning, she knew she had to come in to her peers on Launchbox to meet the other companies and meet everybody in Launchbox. So she's like, she took the weekend to suffer. It was like, okay, I'll be miserable and I'll be sad over the weekend. So she did that. On Monday morning, she got up, she came in, and she continued, she persevered. She's demonstrated these values that I talked about before: agility, adaptability, and resilience. Today, her company is recognized all around the world. They distribute one meal every second and a half to people in need. She's in Ireland, she's in the UK, and her company is also now branching out into the States as well, into America as well. A massive, massive success story, a massive social, entrepreneurial and social innovative success story as well. But I do really appreciate her personal story about how close she was to giving up, to the impact now she's made on millions of lives across the UK, Ireland, and potentially in America soon.
We have come to the end of today's discussion. Now I feel I have a much better understanding of Tangent and Ireland. On behalf of the Global Young Entrepreneur Society, Ken Finnegan, thank you very much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure. And if anybody's ever interested in learning more about Tangent and Trinity, we have lots of programs and lots of accelerators that are open, not just to Trinity students, but all of Europe as well. So log on to our website and you'll find information, and follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. And we have a newsletter as well for anybody that's interested. If you're interested in the #1 university for student entrepreneurship for 6 years in a row, Trinity in Dublin.